Welcome back. This week at the Bali AI Meetup, we get stuck into Fable 5, how to actually use it, and why the real trick is asking it where your blind spots are. We go through the model tiers, watch someone port a whole PC game onto an iPhone with Claude, and get into scraping designs with Apify and saving your own skills on GitHub. We work out when Opus beats Sonnet and take a look at what's coming next with GLM 5.2. I hope you enjoy this week's live AI Meetup.
People actually. So without further ado, let's go on with the agenda for today. And by the way, if there is anything that you don't understand and you think, Harry, what the hell are you talking about? Just put your hand up in the air and ask, and we can slow down a little bit and go through some of the more complex things. But we are going to start with Fable 5. So who here has heard of Fable? Everybody heard of Fable? And what I've talked about? Fable was this new model. Is another name for Mythos. Mythos was the original name of the model, and then of course they refused to release it, so it was too dangerous to release. And when they put it out under the name Fable, which they said they'd put slightly some guardrails around it. So it came out, and then after 2 days, there was this completely crazy announcement from the US government that said this is we're closing it down. Basically, we're putting export controls on it, so nobody who is a US citizen can use it. Anthropic had to suddenly close it down. And then they brought it back a few days ago, and they gave everybody a period where they could your usage of it was included in your subscription. And as of today's the last day that you can use it. Sadly, after this, it means you have to pay extra on top of your subscription to be able to use it. But there were several questions, and one question is, I suppose, is like, what can you actually do with immediately what they want with Fable, which is really cool. I can speak a little bit from my own usage. I've been using it to make some reels for Instagram, so to do some flashy graphics and some things like that. So if we go to my see what Fable did for me. So it made this one for me. It put all these photos together, came up with the concept, and did this mock of what I was asking Claude, and went off and screenshotted that reading list of Cambridge books. So this is pretty cool. It did this all again in pretty much one shot, right? It had some minor adjustments. It was able to know what I wanted, find relevant B-roll, actually go off and use Playwright, which is like a Chromium browser in the web, screenshot various web pages, and then bring them back, and combine that with some Remotion graphics as well. Remotion is a plugin for Claude that lets it create visual graphics for Instagram. So yeah, really cool stuff. And obviously you can bank this as a skill. Anyone else do anything really? Yeah. Yeah. So token usage, we can look at how is token usage going for me this week. We can see I am 91% of the way through my weekly usage, and we're only on the 7th of July. Resets on the 9th, so I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Have Sonnet do everything. Usually, by the way, I wouldn't go through my 100% every my weekly usage every week. So, and that is of course purely because I've been using Fable. So when you're using Claude, so this is Claude Code. For people who are kind of not familiar with it, Claude Code is obviously the most advanced way of using it, but we can use Claude Chat, we can use Claude Cowork if we're kind of in an office setting. But Claude Code is the way that I would recommend people using it. Don't be too scared of it. You can run it in the desktop. And you notice alongside all these settings that we have a very clear usage for it. So not only do we have the model setting, we also, of course, have the usage. So we're going to use high intelligence. We're going to go all the way to ultra code if we wanted to do something very, very complex, but obviously we're going to burn more tokens. Or do we want to have it relatively low effort? So the way to think about these models, if you're new to AI, is Haiku. Think about Haiku as kind of like an intern that can do basic tasks. Think about Sonnet as your sort of average senior manager. You want to give most of your everyday tasks to Sonnet. Opus is going to be your like expert level tasks if you're doing very intense website design and you've got a problem you want to reason a lot. And then Fable is going to be like your outside consultant that you pay a massive sum of money to come in and fix things for. So Seb's absolutely right in the way he's used it to think about what it does. But what does Anthropic actually think about how we should be using Fable 5? Of course, Anthropic isn't the oracle of everything, and I think it's really important that we experiment with this new technology. Everyone's going to have a different way of using it and thinking about it, and I think that's one of the fun things about it as well. It's not that everyone's going to use it in the same way. But Anthropic, who built this, their general argument is that anyone who codes with AI knows the problems. The prompt is set, the plan seems clear, but the result isn't quite right. And according to Anthropic developer Tarek Shilper, with Claude's latest model Fable 5, this is less a problem with the model itself and more a result of the user's own blind spots. So what he's been saying is you want to really ask Fable, what are my blind spots in this? What are the things that I genuinely don't know? So, for instance, I'm making these reels on Instagram. I'm not a video editor. I'm by no means a graphic designer. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't. So I really don't have that knowledge to be able to make these, but Fable does have that knowledge and it can go off and research it. So one of the most useful things you can do is say to it, what am I actually missing? How do I actually get the best results from this? What are the things I'm missing? What are the things I don't know? One of the best prompts I ever gave Opus, not Fable, was I said to it, with absolutely everything you know about me from my second brain, tell me something that maybe I don't know about myself, but you would know about me from what you know. So stuff like that, I think, is really interesting. Asking it to think outside the box, or asking it to give you insights into things that you don't know, and then I guess getting it to educate you as well. So when you don't know something, color grading is another one. All these video editing and graphics terms drive me up the wall. I'm like, I don't care about lighting or graphics or these things, but obviously they're important. So as well as saying to Claude, okay, just do this for me, do the color grade, or give me 3 options and I'll just go with the one that I like, that I think looks good. Also explain it to me. Why have you picked this color grade for my reel? Why have you picked these graphics for this reel? And really try to learn as you go along, rather than just getting it to do stuff. Use it as part of your learning process, your development process. And I think that is one of the things that people miss. And I think Fable will take that to the next level. So he goes on, for areas with many unknown knowns, like visual design, he recommends brainstorming and prototyping instead of jumping into implementation. So this is really, really important. Here is a little bit of a clue for people who are new to these models. One of the things you can do is you can change the mode. So we have here, we're in the cloud. So this means it's going to run on the virtual machine. We have all these modes, and we have one here called plan mode. If you press this, it will come up with a really detailed, comprehensive plan. It won't suddenly go away and make stuff. And you can refine that plan with it until you've got the results that you want. So a plan could be for building an app. What coding language are you going to use and why? How are you going to build this app? What security features are involved in it? Who's the audience for it? What's the UX going to look like? What are you going to do for the UX? Where are you taking inspiration for the UX? Are you going off and actually searching other UX for inspiration? And if so, where are you looking for this? What kind of debugging are we going to need to do? Can you set it up for that? So all of these things that you want to think about, you want to make sure they're in the plan, and you want to go back and forth with the plan before you actually implement it. And where Fable and Opus actually come in handy, particularly Fable, if you want to be conservative with your use case, with your costing, is to actually run them for planning. So if you use them for planning, you might not necessarily have to use Fable to actually execute, which is obviously going to cost you a lot more tokens than it would if you got Opus to execute it. If you can write a detailed enough prompt and detailed enough instructions, you can literally hand that off to the lower tier models. Has that made sense to everyone? If that was kind of insightful and useful about how we might think about using Fable. During and after implementation, document and understand. So this is a really good framework as well we can give to Claude. What are the known knowns? You've probably heard people in politics talk about this. What is stated in the prompt? What are the known unknowns? So that's questions that you know are outside your area of expertise that you haven't answered yet. What are unknown knowns? So this is knowledge that's so obvious you'd never write it down, but you would recognize it immediately if you saw it. And what are like unknown unknowns? So these are like things that you just haven't considered at all. You don't even know they're a blind spot for you because perhaps you're so far detached from that field. And I think what this speaks to is how far these models can be really useful if you are already a domain expert in one of your fields, because they can take it to the next level and you can do things and you can go back and forth with them. When you're not an expert, it can sometimes be difficult to know what you don't know about a field, or how wide and how complex a field actually is. So video editing is always the one that I go back to. It's the one that I know the least about, and the field that I feel least motivated to actually learn about, that I just want Claude to handle for me.
Most of the things.
Yeah, good
For
question.
example, can I at some point just send some pictures to HeyGen, send my voice to ElevenLabs, put a picture like of my desktop, and then tell like, look, I don't want it to have anything to do with this video. I just want to script it, like do it all by yourself. Can I get to that point or still not?
You can, but there are some caveats that we need to consider. So how that workflow would work is almost exactly right, which is you chat with Claude, you plugged in by MCP or by connectors. HeyGen. HeyGen is a video avatar tool, so it can turn you into a video, or indeed you could simply use Seed Dance or Higgsfield. Higgsfield are one of Gcore's clients who I work for. Higgsfield is basically a tool that's kind of like a wrapper with all the video and image generation models in it. So you'd plug in one of the image or video generator models, or the tool that's cloned you. You'd plug in ElevenLabs, which is your voice cloning tool, and then you would also plug in Remotion, which will do some of the graphics for you, and probably some bespoke skills that you built with graphic styles that you like. Now, the result that you get at the end probably won't be that great if you haven't given it enough instructions. You probably need to go through several attempts at making video sales letters, making YouTube videos, and then start porting all of your findings into skills. So start saying, okay, well, you made a mess of this, but I like this, so let's save this workflow, bank the workflow, boom, put it in a skill, put it in GitHub, and work like that. And so you probably are not going to get exactly what you want the first time around. But how would you do the actual cutting? Yeah. Another caveat I would say is, if you're making video sales letters, I think trust is really, really important. And so I would suggest to you that people are increasingly becoming good at telling some of these AI video generation models. So either you need to do it really, really well, or B, I would think about, okay, what is it that you're trying to save for here by using an avatar? Because you could still save time by filming yourself speaking on a white background and have AI put you in the studio, touch up some of the lighting and make it look good. Indeed, some of these tools even let you do like other camera angles, but it's still you. It still sounds like you. And I think the sounding like you is the most important thing at the moment. And how much time are you really saving by doing that small little step compared to doing a HeyGen? But how much trust are you going to build by doing that? But all the editing is still being taken care of by AI.
Yeah. So I would have to, like, let's say, do the 10-minute video and then just send it to AI and tell it, I like this video editing style, and do the next.
That's what I do. Let me show you something that I have just posted on YouTube. So last week's meetup, obviously I'm recording these for YouTube content. It can be a bit hit or miss. Sometimes I get 2,000 views, sometimes I get 30 views. And I also record footage in the studio as well. I'm still experimenting. I'm trying to find out what my personal grow channel looks like. So this is a clip from last week's meetup. We're talking about how to grow on LinkedIn with AI. So I haven't done any editing on this. Claude has completely handled this. So you can see what it's done is it's gone and found relevant articles that I'm talking about, and it's put those in there. It's found, if we can, I don't know if you can see this, a LinkedIn post, so it's made, a fake LinkedIn post. And then here, when I've talked about my actual routines, has actually gone out and grabbed them, so you can actually read what is in my daily prompt. And so it's kind of hit or miss. So this, I think, is really good B-roll. This is the actual note that it gives me, and it's gone out and it's scraped that from GitHub for me. And then sometimes it's done kind of dodgy stuff, right? So if I was being an absolute perfectionist, I think here it's done what does that really add to the? It doesn't really add anything, right? So you've kind of got to go back and say, correct this, don't do that, do this. So that kind of thing. but then sometimes it hits on some sort of real genius moments, right? So you look at these reels. I mean, some of these are doing okay. Sometimes I look at this and I think the amount of graphics and time that went into making that in tokens, and it got 160 views. And then I just made this in front of my filming in front of the camera, and that got almost 2,000 views. So I think sometimes it's more about the idea and thinking about it. But yeah, to answer your question,
You go between regular Claude and Claude design for those things.
for these things, not so much. No, what my workflow involves actually, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail later. How you do this is I will actually scrape designs that I like. So I have a swipe folder of carousels, of reels, and I've set Claude up in such a way that I'll say, go away, grab that, and grab the design from it, and then I want you to tweak it and put it in my brand colors, or alter it. So one good example is this carousel. I'll just show you this, which I think is really quite beautiful, that Claude made for me. And then each one you swipe on it, it tells you what you have to do. There's a real gold in this, by the way, as well. So these are all the GitHub repos I use. And so this is something that I scraped and actually told it to actually convert to my brand color. So it wasn't originally like this. And this little level thing that I really like, and it's made these nice little designs on them. So pretty good considering I know absolutely nothing about graphic design. But again, I think the idea on social media is really important, because this didn't do as well as I perhaps would have imagined it would have liked. I think if we look at the insights. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. That's what I will usually do, and I will talk about this in a little bit more detail in the next section, actually, which is how you actually go about scraping these. Talk about one more story on Fable, I think, before we move on, which is in terms of what you can do with it. Somebody has managed to port an entire video game from the PC onto their iPhone in a few hours with Fable, which is pretty cool. So imagine you've got GTA 6 and you want to put it on your mobile, maybe GTA 5, you've got some old video game lying around. Now it seems this would be relatively straightforward to do. It still took him a few... Yeah, so, Claude Code and Fable 5 ported the 2003 game Command & Conquer to native iOS in a few hours. So Google DeepMind developer posted Command & Conquer general to 0 hour to iPhone and iPad. So this is a really, really cool, I think, task. So let's talk about the complexity of how you do this, right? Which is that, like, to do this, you've got to convert the language into Swift, because apps for Mac and for PC are in a different language to what's on the iPhone. They use their bespoke language called Swift. You've obviously got to make sure that everything like renders correctly as well. You've also got to make sure that the memory capabilities, that the iPhone is actually able to run something that big. Maybe if it's been built for PC or it's been built for Mac, how are you going to be able to run it on an iPhone? Now, the fact that this is an old game from 2003 is probably quite, in its favor, that an iPhone of today can probably run a game that obviously a phone couldn't even imagine running in 2003. But that you can do this within a few hours, and you haven't got to hire a team to do it. The graphics pipeline exactly transfers DirectX to Apple's Metal API through several intermediate steps. And it says the first build took about 40 minutes, followed by a few hours of debugging. So this is the problem. And for the first 2 days, he burnt through his entire Claude Max quota. So if you try to do this, you're going to burn through all of your quota immediately. So I wouldn't advise spending all your quota on this unless you know exactly what you're doing. And he's published the full source code on GitHub as open source. So that just means what he's done is available to everybody. And the game assets aren't included. So you need your own copy of the game. So you can buy it on stream for about $5, and then you can actually run the code he's built, and you can actually transfer it onto your phone. So really, some people are doing some absolutely insane engineering tasks with it, and I really think what's changing is that if somebody, in let's say 2 days work in a couple of hours is able to do something that would take an entire development team, I think what people are starting to think about is, okay, what can I do with this? What more can I do? Before, maybe people would not even think about doing this. Now people are thinking, how can I do even more than I could before? So I think we're going to start to see some really interesting really creative things. And I also think the barrier to entry for video games is gonna lower as well. So I'm sure you've probably all seen the hype videos of people who've vibe coded, like special versions of GTA in their home. How do you like make something like that? What kind of stuff can you be doing? I think that one of the ways you can help make Claude get better designs is by taking inspiration from other design channels. And one of the ways you can do that is by scraping Instagram, and Pinterest as well is another thing that people use. So if we look at my where are we? My swipe file, if I can get to it. So this always gets kind of hidden, but there's a section called saved. And somebody made a reel about how this like almost never gets used. You can just press save very easily. So anything that I find interesting, I tend to put in here. So these carousels that I really liked, we've got like this one, Claude Skills Factory, 24 things to install in Claude. I really like these. Now, obviously, I want to bring my own ideas to them, and I want to sort of like change these slightly. If I was just to put this straight out with different text, then I think that would be copying, right? It wouldn't exactly be fair. But let's say we want to clone this and we want to take inspiration from this. How can we do this to make a really nice carousel like this? Well, if we just ask Claude to do this, guess what? We are going to get blocked. Instagram has kind of cottoned on and got wise to the fact that we are doing this. And it might not be able to do this. We actually need to install some tools to be able to do this. Now, if we're running Claude locally on our system, we can use something called YTDLP. It's a free open source software. It's designed for downloading kind of things from Instagram. We can even use some Playwright to actually go into Instagram and scrape things. If we want to run this in the cloud, we are going to get slightly blocked. So one way that you can actually do this is to use Apify to scrape this. So Apify is a open source marketplace. We talked about it last week. And basically all of your scraping tools, so if you want to grab Google Maps, if you want to grab some stuff from Instagram, whatever it is you want to get, they will actually run these largely on their own infrastructure. So you're not going to get your Instagram account is not going to get shut down. You're not going to get blocked for trying to mass scrape things. And you pay a small bit of money towards them. And the really cool thing is you can give this to Claude and say, with this, and if it doesn't get on very well, then we can always upgrade to Opus. Probably going to want to give Sonnet a little bit of extra effort there, and we'll see what it does. And we press bypass permissions. Now, why have we pressed this? Because we don't have to keep pressing allow all the time. This is a very basic task. We're not asking it to do anything too where we're giving it access to too much information. We really just want it to go away and do it. So let's see if it can do this for us. Surprises us. And let's see the method that it tries to take if we don't give it a method as to how to actually do this. So remember, when should you give Claude a method? When should you give AI a method to do something, and when should you not? If you don't give it a method, it's going to try and figure it out on its own. That's going to inherently take it more tokens and take it more time, because it's thinking, okay, well, there are like 4 different ways to do this. I'm going to try this way, this way, this way, and this way. If you've already gone down the route of this task and you know it already, you can save that time by simply saying, go this route instead for me.
What do you mean by that?
If you are an expert in a domain, or you know something already about it, you can save time by laying out the different routes for it. You can say, you might want to go to Apify and try this. You might want to use Playwright, which is a browser automation tool, to go away and screenshot this. You might want to do this. If you tell it the route that you want it to go, it will try that first, and you can save it some time if you know that that route is going to work. If you don't know that this is where having it go in plan mode, write a plan first, it's going to take more tokens, it's going to take more time, it might mess up. Because if you think that there are like a million ways to string a cat, you're asking it within a short period of time to go and explore all the different avenues and to decide for itself what route it should take to do something. So you can see here, what route is it trying to do when I haven't given it an instruction? It's trying to use Chrome browser extension. Right? And by the yeah.
Or wait, can we go back to the design?
Please, yeah.
How did you fix the font problem? Because my biggest issue with font design is often especially for Instagram.
Yeah. So this is a good question. It's something that I'm working on solving. I'm now following a lot of graphic designers on Instagram, and a lot of them are sharing, use this font, use that font, use that font. Whenever I see them, I'm like, boom, I want that Instagram, and I want some people are even explaining why they use different fonts. So I'm just giving all that knowledge all the time to Claude, building up a library in GitHub of fonts of different things. If you have a specific font in mind or you already have a brand, then it's really easy. There's a friend of mine that I'm doing a small bit of work for to grow his Instagram account with AI, making some reels for him, and he's got a specific font that he's used in all his other reels. So we just use that. We just tell it, screenshot it, I want you to do this, and it does that exactly, and it brings it up. So it can do the thing if it has exactly kind of what you want already, but it doesn't inherently have that intuitive knowledge and that understanding of design as we do, which kind of makes sense. Okay, and it always does seem to default if you don't give it enough instructions to its default sort of Claude design mode, which is let's put a, you always see the header and the footer. I don't know if you've seen that. You can see something's been made by Claude because it's got the header and the footer, and it's got annoying little small little text that you can't see, and as you say, fonts that look exactly the same. So again, remember, AI is a prediction machine. And so if you have not given it the exact instructions that you want, it's just going to default to what the default setting is. And those fonts that you see and those things is probably because that's what's in its training data and what it thinks design is kind of like. Because nobody's really said to it this. So I think what's cool about this is that we've done it on Sonnet as well. We've done it on Sonnet 5. We haven't had to use Opus. Everybody familiar with Sonnet 5, the upgrade? We could talk about that for a little bit. Sonnet 5. Sonnet 5, we had Sonnet 4.8, and then Sonnet's got upgraded to Sonnet 5. So it's now much more intelligent, but the usage, you're still not having to use Opus level intelligence. So it's kind of upgraded the standard everyday model that we use. I actually quite like it. I find it quite good. I find Sonnet gives me a softer, nicer answer. I find when I chat with Opus can be a little bit harsh, a little bit like a genius who doesn't exactly have all the best social skills in the world. So sometimes I feel more comforting speaking to Opus. So I'm curious if anyone is the same.
I pretty much want to use Opus,
Yes,
but
yeah.
I do find that sometimes, it will just keep giving you like really extensive answers, even though you're wanting to quickly. It'll just be like, oh, here's 7 caveats for you on your situation.
Yeah. Do you think
I might try Sonnet. I've always used Opus.
If you think about the most intelligent person that you know, sure, we've all met these crazy genius-like people. When you speak to them, it's like, and when you speak to any domain expert, sometimes it's like they understand the complexity in an issue in so much depth that that's what it's like to have a conversation with them. They're like, oh, but you haven't thought about all these 7 things, and it can be really quite annoying, even though they're right. And that's, to me, that's a bit like speaking with Opus. Sometimes you don't want that. You just want somebody who's going to cut through the noise and make those decisions for you rather than reverting back to you. That's something I think the engineers have not got right, and they've been sort of open about that, which is like the balance between when does it just go off and do things. And I think you'll remember with Opus 4.7, the previous model, it was 2 hands off. It would sometimes say, okay, I'm just going to go and do this thing, and then it's deleted your entire code base. It's gone off and done this thing without even consulting you. So then I think they tried to row back with 4.8. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, no, I didn't like this. It's like, hey, cool, I'm going to do it again. It starts like doing it. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky to get it right, but you know what I'm really realizing is I'm learning about communication styles with it as well. I feel like I'm learning about managing people with it as well. Because I'm sure all of these problems exist within teams as well. They do, right? When you this is really nice as well, is that you can look at this and you can see that it can be running several tasks at the same time. So somebody asked me, can you run different tasks at the same time? Yes, you absolutely can. So if we're running this, we could also start a new session and I could say, okay, I want you to, for instance, this was the AI meetup from last week. I want you to start making B-roll for the video as well. And both those tasks could be running at the same time. So there's no limit to the amount of these tasks that you can have running. One thing I would also recommend in Claude Code as well while we're here is I don't know if you know about these groups that you can create. So you can actually start grouping your tasks into different kind of folders now. I've found this to be really, really helpful instead of just having a mess here. And then when I'm not doing anything, I will archive it. That's kind of my system. So I can press this. This is obviously Instagram carousels. So we're going to move this to my social media. And then when we go to social media, you can see this is the latest task here. And then any tasks that are already done. So let's say this would just press archive, and then it will archive that task, and that won't be in the chat anymore. So it's really, really good that they're starting to think about design as well. I wonder if in the future there'll be a literally folder structure like there is in Obsidian along the sidebar. And we'll see who comes back first. Maybe this will actually be quicker and faster than the 10 minutes it's taken us with that already. While it's doing that, I'll just talk a little bit about the additional steps you need to do to make a carousel like this. A lot of people have asked, what about the fonts? What about the inherent sort of cloudiness that it makes with the design? How do you stop that from happening? The best way you can do to stop that from happening is setting up a repo, a skill that lives in a GitHub repo, and that skill will have your brand design in it. Okay, maybe you've got different skills that have different brand style in it, and then what you're doing is you're basically banking that knowledge. You're saving it in a skill. So next time you want to use it, all you've got to do is call that skill out, and it will make you a similar thing. So just to give you an example, if I tell it, okay, I want to make a carousel on the, let's say, the top 5 ways of using AI for design.
So why would you put that skill on GitHub and not in the
Yeah, sorry about that. So I just put it in GitHub so that you have access to it from anywhere. So it has access to it in the cloud. If you want to run it on a Claude in the cloud, all you've got to do is add in that GitHub repo, and then the skill is in there. Which that means they're very easily shareable as well. So if I'm making skills for clients, then I like to have them in the GitHub repo.
like the equivalent of like having an MD file that you like upload.
Yeah, a skill is essentially an MD file. It's a little bit more complex than that, right? It has certain, maybe some scripts in there, some Python scripts, some skills. But yeah, so if I press this, so if we're running Claude in the cloud, which we are, and then I press this button, you can see these are all my repos here. So I have one specifically for YouTube thumbnails. So whenever I want to make a thumbnail, I make sure that reel's in there because that holds all of my thumbnails. And then I've got this one, real design skills. So whenever I want to make a design, I press that, and then that's going to be able to bring that up. So I want to make a carousel of the top 5 ways of using AI for design based on your our chats. Say based on our recent chat about improving design and the things we do. Come up with 5 ideas, please. So we'll get it to come up with the ideas first. So you can see immediately when we've given this a method, we've told it to go to Apify, it's immediately doing this a lot faster than asking it, just not giving it a method and asking it to go away and do its own thing. So we'll use Apify because it's just easier, it's simpler, and it gets us results faster. So we're going to get it to come up with the idea. Once it's come up with the idea, we're going to be able to make a design, come up with a design context. We could also tell it I want a carousel, a Windows carousel design. Perfect. So it's done this already, and you can see this is what it's done. I've scraped through all 7 frames. It's got the design system. This is the reusable part. It's got the typography, really, really important. The slab serif display, mono-space typewriter font, handwritten marker script font, always in the accent orange, the core component. Next step, want me to design an original carousel using this same system. So we can say, make sure that we're really using it in a way which is kind of going to get us the results that we've talked about some use cases for it. We've talked about how we can use it for making video games. We've talked about those guys that actually managed to transfer a whole video game from the PC to their iPhone. We've talked about how you can sort of one-shot a SaaS with it. We talked about how it's really expensive as well in terms of the token use. And so we want to use it relatively sparingly, and perhaps we want to use it in plan mode. And of course, we've also talked about design principles as well. We didn't quite get a chance to talk about Obsidian today, but we've talked about how we can get some really, really good designs out of Claude. And what are some of the principles of doing that? Using Apify to scrape designs that we want, building skills in a GitHub repo so that we can reuse them. And as we've just seen, using Opus to make carousels for us and not Sonnet. It's clearly not a job for Sonnet. So let's see where we get with this, if we manage to get a good carousel before the end of the session. So here we see what Opus is doing. Opus has identified, okay, this is a completely different skill. So what it's going to do is it's building me a render.py. That's a Python script. That's a piece of code. So one of the things we've talked about before, one of the amazing things about AI, is that you can now write a piece of code that can just be thrown away after one session or that can be reused. So because code is now so cheap, because an LLM can write it, it can write a piece of software just to do the thing that you want. And once it's done, that piece of software can be chucked in the bin. Before, you would never dream of doing that, because guess what? You'd have to hire a dev and you'd have to pay them some money. And you'd say, I'm not going to hire a dev to go and write me some code to make me an Instagram carousel. That would be crazy, right? A dev would cost £500 a day or something in excess of that, when you could just hire a designer. So there we go. So it's doing some really cool stuff. No Playwright yet. So what is it doing? So it's installing Playwright to go and like scrape some things that it knows I like. My logo, thinks about me. So you can immediately see the difference in intelligence between Sonnet and Opus. This is definitely a task you'd want Opus to do, because it just goes off and does those very cool genius things. Installing Playwright. Playwright is like basically browser automation and doing some rendering, writing a piece of software for you to actually make this rather than just trying to make it itself. So you can really see the difference between the intelligence in the two things there.
You see just now, like the code can use your computer, like browse on the code.
Yep.
And it also straight from your Excel sheet.
Yes, it can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you wanted to, yeah. So we'll use computer use. So any app you have on your local system.
So as long as you click it on,
it can do it. Yeah, it'll ask you permission. It can scrape it. Yeah.
Even your folder.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Have like 100
yeah. Anything that's on your computer, Claude can access if you give it permission to do things with, and take screenshots of, rearrange. It can rearrange all your folders for you. So it's a totally new way of thinking about a computer. All of them, yeah, but to varying degrees of intelligence. So if you ask Opus to rearrange your files for you, it's going to go away and probably write you a really detailed plan. Like, it's going to think about it and give you a very high level plan. You ask Haiku to do it, the smallest model is probably like going to do a very basic, but all of the models can have access to it. So we're moving into a completely new paradigm, a way of thinking about computers, right? Before, the interface would be apps, you press and you have an interface. Increasingly, I would say probably within the next 3 or 5 years, that's going to go away and we're going to be just speaking with an LLM. And then LLM is going to be writing and doing things for us and executing for us. When you load up your computer, you'll just have a chatbot interface. And we might even enter a world where software is completely bespoke to you. It's not apps that you buy anymore. You just ask Claude what it is that you want. So it will completely revolutionize and change absolutely everything about the computer, for sure. Yeah. And you can see that now, right? So yeah, any piece of software that you have on your computer, an LLM can access. So screenshot, it can do things. There are various restrictions on them, on some levels, obviously for privacy, for various things, and they don't, a lot of websites don't want you to be able to scrape very easily. So they want to block you from doing that because they obviously want you to go to the website. They want to get traffic, but there are very easy ways around that. And you can see here, it's creating files for us. It's running Chrome headless. It's running Playwright, which is a browser automation tool, like we said. And now it's rendering all of these slides for us. So if you open up this, you can see exactly what it's doing. It's reading stuff, whether it's writing code for you. is really, really quite interesting, and you can see it's running commands. So this is something that you could pay attention to, and would be really cool for you to pay attention to. Is like, what kind of programming language is it using? What is it doing in the background? Is it using Python? Is it using HTML? Do you know much about coding languages yet, or we not got to that yet? Not yet, not yet. Soon you will be a master of coding languages for sure. So when we're writing apps or scripts or things to actually do things on our computer, generally we use Python. If you see .py, means it's Python. This is a language for sort of doing things with actions in it. If we're writing websites, probably writing them in HTML, which is hypertext markup language, which is like the programming language of websites. So if you don't understand something that it's doing, you can actually go away and ask it. You can look at some of this code and you can say, tell me about this, explain it to me. What were you doing back there? And I think that's one of the greatest ways that you can actually learn, is to actually go away and do something, ask it questions. See what it's doing here? M dash is gone, colons now. So it knows about me. Opus is so much more intelligent, and we've given it that extra usage. It knows that I don't want an M dash anywhere near me. Why might I not want an M dash in any of my material? What might be the reason for that? Do you know what an M dash is? Yeah, because an M dash is kind of a tell, isn't it, for AI? If you see an M dash, a really long horizontal line, it means that it probably was written by AI. So it knows automatically not to put those in for me. Let's see what it's done. It looks like it has actually done something. Yes, yeah, I was going to say that, yeah.
Whereas the other models that you play with Opus are like really good at doing one thing, they're not trained on sequential steps
Yes.
or long horizon type of Fable was able to do that. So people are like, wow, it's magic. But if they would have broken it down into like micro tasks on different things, that they can get.
I agree with you for sure. And I think like what people have been doing in the past is setting up agent frameworks, right? It's being like, okay, Sonnet handles this, and like I think if we think about the progression, right, it's like Sonnet handles the smaller tasks, and then people were kind of putting together in a kind of N8N style, like one thing goes to another. And then Anthropic got wise to it and said, okay, with Opus now, we're going to detect and try to sense when you've asked for one of these big tasks, and then we're going to delegate it all the way down. Still, even with subagents, still even that doesn't always get good results. And now we've got Fable, as you say, which has been trained on this long time horizon. It can run for days at a time, right? And this is why it's so good at cyber attacks. You know, we know that it passed this 32-stage exploit, this crucial 32-stage test called the last ones, that was able to basically just break into an entire enterprise company's software, which is something which would have taken like days and days and days of some of the best, cyber, hackers on the, on Earth to actually be able to do that. And Fable and GPT Cyber were able to do that. And the reason it wasn't able to do that is because, as you said, it was like there were so many sequential steps in there that it needed to do one after the other that all had to be right and align with each other to get the end result. So yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And you get better results that way, more than even delegating to sub-agents. Say, and I've experienced where it's like, just like in a game of telephones, context gets lost every time you hand off a project. So like Opus, even you think it understands what you want, but then it tells Sonnet to go do something, and it's just more and more like the more it does that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but I agree with you. Yeah. Let's wrap up for today. I'll just give you my contact details if you want to stay in touch. So I'm on LinkedIn, trying to post relatively helpful stuff on LinkedIn. So you're welcome to follow me on there. I've got a YouTube channel as well. LinkedIn, sorry, I'll bring that back up for you. Harry Verity. Yeah. I've got a habit of keeping these windows minimized, as you can tell, not maximizing them. Yeah. There you go. I've also got a YouTube channel as well. People who are just getting started with AI, trying to be helpful. So feel free to follow along with that. And yeah, that is about it from me. So I will see you all at the next one. Yeah. it depends on what's going on in the news. So obviously Fable 5 was the hot topic of this week. Next week, I'm planning a session on GLM 5.2. Everyone know what that is? Yeah. Will you? Yeah. So I'm going to do a bunch of research on it. I actually also work, as I said, for Gcore, which is a cybersecurity company. So I'm making a video for them this week. So as I said, Gcore is where you go if you want to, obviously, you're a massive enterprise and you want to run AI. So these videos are a bit more technical, but yeah, we're going to do a deep dive next week into GLM 5.2. It's going to be a bit more technical. So probably looking into some of the research papers. And we're going to ask the question. We're going to ask two questions. Number one, is this as good as Fable 5? And two, what happens if we pass, never mind the time horizon, we pass the event horizon and we get to a point where open source models actually surpass closed source models, particularly from China. What does that actually mean for the big labs? Is there a moat anymore around that, and how does that actually even work? And are we even close to that happening? So I think those are the big questions that GLM poses. You might have seen from a Chinese company, XAI, they just brought out following what we're talking about, just when we're talking about GLM 5.2. So new model from China. That supposedly is good as Fable 5. So if you want to know all about that, come next week. We're going to talk about that in detail.